Welcome back to Real Estate Radio. I'm your host, Ryan Sloper, joined by my guest, Louis Cammarosano, the general manager of HomeGain. Quick reminder before we jump back in, Real Estate Radio is designed to build the Washington, D.C. Metro's housing and credit markets by one house at a time. We can give you good advice on credit, finance, real estate, anything to help your real estate decisions. The best number to reach out to us on our off-air number is 877-245-2030. That's 877-245-2030. 2030. Now remember, that's an off-air number. If you leave your name and number, I'll get back to you just as soon as I can. We're going to jump into this week's Word on Wealth, where we talk about what happened in the market last week and how it's going to affect you and your real estate decisions. This segment was brought to you by HomeGain. HomeGain is the place to get you started buying or selling a home, finding a realtor, and getting real estate questions answered. So go to homegain.com today to see what I'm talking about. All you have to do is type in your home address, and you will get an instant free estimate of your home's value online. It's a great way to monitor your home's value, and it's totally free. So check that out today at homegain.com. Also, you can check out their blog at blog.homegain.com. So overall, last week, the volatility was continuing. But the best opportunity to refinance your mortgage in history is still going on. We touched on that earlier. I want to give you the averages of what the interest rates were. The overnight averages on the 30-year fixed, it was 4.15%, which was down 0.03% from 4.18% the week prior. On a 15-year fixed, it was 3.36%, and these all are according to Bankrate.com's national averages. And the 5/1 ARM is at 2.95%, down from 2.98% the week before. So while there was all this volatility going on, mortgage rates were still hanging in there and staying steady at the 50-year lows that we've had. I mean, it has never, ever been a lower cost of homeownership than today. And I want to reemphasize that because so many people that I've talked to get caught up in the actual price of the home and not what their cost of homeownership is. I like to say that, if you were to go out to a car dealership and you see a $50,000 tag on there, but somebody told you could have a $450 payment, you might buy that car versus if you knew that $50,000 car was going to cost you $1,000 a month. Wouldn't you agree, Louis?
Well, it depends on how many years you're going to pay the $450, but in general, yes.
Yeah, but a lot of the way, the public in general thinks is just what is my payment going to be? I try to educate them on, the interest rate is important. Obviously, the term is important, but I'm just talking about the overall general perception of people. Like, and I see this all the time in real estate marketing. I mean, they throw up their $500,000 house. They might put a payment of, $3,400, something like that, to try to just, that's trying to get people to buy into what the actual cheap payment that they could have instead of what the price of the home is, because that can really deter people from being, wanting to buy a house.
Well, in your example, if your payment is fixed for a home over a period of time, that's very attractive. The car example doesn't make sense to me because you don't want to be paying $450 for a car for 20 years.
No, what I meant was, let's say that it was a $50,000 loan and you could have 0% for, like 10 years.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Like that's the creative financing that's out there. And without knowing that financing is available, you probably otherwise wouldn't look at that car.
Right, but but we can stick directly with the housing without even doing an analogy. If you know that your mortgage payment is going to be $2,200 a month for the next 20 years, that's pretty attractive.
Absolutely, especially considering that rental prices are rising, and at some point the rental, your rent was going to exceed what your mortgage payment would be buying right now in this low cost.
Absolutely.
Let's see here. On Tuesday, the market was up 44 points. This is last week. The bonds were stable, but continuing their peaks. On Wednesday, the market was down. Wall Street continued to waver amid the debt crisis. And the Austrian parliament failed to approve a European financial stability upgrade. On Thursday, jobless claims came in. And once again, this was another stinker of a report. Jobless claims climbed by 11,000 to 428,000 in the week ending September 10th. That included the Labor Day holiday. This has just been a continuing trend, Louis. I mean, this is not getting better. Obviously, we just saw that Bank of America is having their huge layoff as well, and which is going to lead me to believe that these figures are going to be bad for at least the rest of the year, because there tends to be this tailing trend that stuff doesn't get reported until a couple months later.
And also, people generally aren't going to hire until the new year. Right now, what most companies are doing, and we're doing it as well, is we're planning our 2012 budgets.
Right.
And generally, if you don't have new hires in the budget for 2011, absent some big pickup in demand, you're not hiring at the end of the year.
We're talking with Louis Cammarosano, the general manager of HomeGain, and what was going on in the market last week and how it affects you and your real estate decisions. On Friday, consumer sentiment came in, and the consensus was 56.0, and the actual was 57.8. Consumer expectations and a reflection of the weak jobs market and the recent trouble in the financial markets. We're at the lowest point since the Iranian hostage and oil crisis more than 30 years ago. The assessment of the 6-month outlook, which is the leading component of the consumer sentiment index, slipped 0.4 at the mid-month reading to 47.0. As recently as May, this is the most astounding part of this component was approaching a respectable 70. So that really shows you, and it's kind of interesting how this kind of correlates to your survey, the actual consumer sentiment that's out there just over the general overall economy and housing. I think that they feel the same way about housing as they do about the rest of the economy, and obviously most of it's tied together with jobs and everything. But um, for people that are in this DC metro area, I will say that a lot of these numbers would probably be higher if they did it on a state-by-state basis. I do think that a lot of people are very high on the real estate in the DC metro area from all the agents, brokers, and just general clients that I have. I mean, just talking to them, they seem to have more of an upbeat personality about, it being feasible for them to buy a home finally.
Well, because most of your clientele, or a good portion of them, are either government workers, and there's been a big spike in the last couple of years in government workers making over $150,000 a year. Most government workers, federal government workers, get a cost of living increase or just a general pay increase. Very few don't get that increase. And you still have a lot of stimulus money with government contractors. So the D.C. metro area is doing pretty well with all that money. Now, that should stay constant at least for another couple of years, because all of these talks that we've had about raising the debt ceiling and these deficit reduction plans have really gone nowhere. The amount of spending remains the same, and a good portion of that occurs at the federal agencies where most of your clientele works.
Yeah, you're right. But I will tell you that in talking to a few government contracting firms, they are worried at some point, and this just goes back to the overall uncertainty in the markets and why a lot of people aren't hiring people, is because they feel like that maybe their contract might not be renewed in the coming years. Because a lot of the government contractors are getting these contracts for 5 to 7 years. Well, they're planning out for long term, 5, 10 years, but then they don't know if something coming in these proposed job bills or stimuluses or anything that's going on, if it's going to affect them to where they may cut defense spending or whatever niche that they're in. They're worried that could really affect them, and they don't want to make any decisions until they 100% know what's going on.
That's true, but the government workers probably don't have that dilemma because they're pretty secure in their jobs. I don't think there's been any at the federal level any layoffs whatsoever.
Now, I think most of them have been on the local levels, just in your
Local level, because they can't print the money to pay their employees, so they have to make the
exactly. It's funny that it somehow can't make its way down to those levels. You would think that they could just continue printing even more and help them out as well, but
actually part of the stimulus does do that. I mean, the money does go to bail out the states and municipalities by buttressing their budgets.
Yeah,
they can pay their local people.
Well, one of the interesting things that I wanted to touch on too is we got this report, I believe it was last Thursday, that from CNN Money, where the foreclosures rise in August. The filings were up 7% compared to July, but were still 33% lower than they were a year ago, marking the 11th straight month of a year-over-year decline, according to RealtyTrack. According to the report, 228,098 homes in the U.S. received some kind of foreclosure filing in August. Default notices, which typically initiate the foreclosure process, surged more than 33% from July. Foreclosure auctions and bank repossessions, which come later in the process, both fell slightly. In this article, it actually said that the good news is that bank repossessions have been falling. Lenders repossessed 64,813 homes in August. And when we come back, I'm going to tell you why that is not good news for the market and where I think this article is actually screwed up. When we come back, stay right there.